Welcome. Today, we're talking about I-77 and specifically why I-77 could ruin Charlotte's future and exactly all the drama that has led us to this point. To give you an overview, Charlotte just killed a $3.2 billion highway project. In May of 2026, one of the fastest growing cities in America did something that cities almost never do. Charlotte walked away from a $3.2 billion highway project that it spent 20 years planning and turned down about $600 million in state money just for the pleasure of walking away. And the trigger of all of this wasn't actually traffic. It was the drama here on the ground in the city of the beautiful Queen City of Charlotte. The original plan was elevated double-decker toll lanes, or maybe I should say the original iteration, because there's been so many iterations for what to do with I-77. These double-decker toll lanes were planned to tower several stories over a historically black West Charlotte neighborhood. It was going to erase a park and also take a lot of homes by eminent domain. And so many of the local neighborhoods revolted. A lot of the city did not really love it. And the city council ended up flipping in a stunning late night vote. And the regional planning board, as a result, pulled the plug on the entire project. Now, everyone in Charlotte is living with the fallout. The state's threatening to claw back millions, tens of millions of dollars. The suburbs feel pretty betrayed. Traffic has continued to get worse regardless, and Charlotte has roughly until October to decide whether we're gonna reverse the decision or continue onwards or what we're gonna do. And so the real question underneath all of this is, and really what I'm trying to answer on this video today, who actually gets to decide what Charlotte will become? Is it the neighborhoods that live next to the highway? Is it the regions and towns around the city, inside and outside of Mecklenburg County that commute into the city? Or is it actually just the state because they hold the checkbook and can kind of corner people if they really want to? If you live in the Charlotte MSA, or if you're thinking about moving here, this is going to be a very clear window into how this city makes decisions about growth and give you some food for thought. And it'll be educational. It'll be fun. So to start us off, what did Charlotte actually do, and why is killing this highway project such a big deal? I got an article here I was reading. Let me pull it down. Let me switch my tabs. Here we go. Don't judge me. I got a million tabs open. So this is from earlier this year, I believe, just to help set the stage. So back in February, the North Carolina Department of Transportation locked in the design that started all of this with the elevated toll lanes that would be going down an 11-mile stretch from the center of the city to the state line. So the North Carolina Department of Transportation says it's going to move forward with designs that will include elevated toll lanes over Interstate 77 into Uptown as part of a planned $3.2 billion expansion project. NCDOT disclosed this decision late in the day, February 4th. Discussions and planning for the 11-mile expansion of I-77 from the state line to Uptown date back to 2014. It's been over a decade of this. And in 2024, the CRTPO, this is something that you will see again later, the federally designated planning group for Iredell, I always want to say Iredell, but it's not, it's Iredell. Mecklenburg and Union counties approved toll lanes as the preferred method for expanding the I-77 South corridor. Without a combination of public and private funding, the latter coming from the revenue generated by tolls, the interstate will not be able to secure full state funding for several decades. One of the things is, I don't know if this article goes into depth on, I don't think it touches, there's a cap on the size and scope of any given highway project in North Carolina without getting a special separate source for funding. And so as a result, in order to get into the easier bucket of money to fund these sort of projects, they either got to come up with money from tolls or something else, or private funding, which I-77 North was its own cluster that many people are still very unhappy with how that was handled. And also one of the reasons why there has been so much scrutiny on how I-77 southbound is handled as a result too. Anyways, I digress. So state funding is likely to account for no more than $600 million of the construction cost, and the design endorsed by NCDOT calls for adding 2 lanes north and south along the 11-mile stretch. Mix of widened and elevated paths for the new lanes. The elevated portion in and around Uptown will begin just north of the interstate and go over Moorhead, 4th Trade, and 5th Streets and over the I-277 Brookshire Freeway interchange before connecting to existing I-77 toll lanes that go north to exit 36 in Iredell County. Just to give you a quick insight, so that would, and funny enough, you can already see the traffic for me. And we're talking at 11:50 in the morning. The traffic ain't great. Something's got to happen. So that would be, I want to say right around here, or maybe right around, let's see. It was, got too many tabs open. I-277 Brookshire Freeway interchange before connecting to existing. So I think it would be right here. And then it would go southbound all the way basically to the state line. So, the NCDOT said the corridor carries 160,000 cars a day and that an underground alternative would cost an impossible 36 to 60 billion, and opponents called the whole process a predetermined decision. To be fair, we don't got money to spend 50 billion on going underground for this. We don't have money like that. Something's got to happen, but what has happened so far was definitely not popular when they made the announcement. So here's a piece by Axios. So shortly after this, because there's a massive uproar, my entire Instagram feed exploded with Axios opinion pieces or whatever whoever runs their Instagram, and a variety of different people, locals, local influencers, realtors, you name it. Everybody was ready to hang this out to dry because so many people that were very loud were very in opposition of it. And so fast forward just a couple months later, interestingly, in a stunning late-night vote on May 11th, the City Council reversed itself 6-5 and rescinded support for the projects in the current form. We are removing our support until further independent analysis and changes and community outreach are done to our satisfaction. Council member Renee Johnson said, "My motion simply has teeth." The Charlotte City Council does not have unilateral power to stop the project. The Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization does. And what was interesting was 9 days later, the Regional Planning Board, the CRTPO, revoked its own approval, and the decision could delay the project for years or kill it outright. And one of the other things that this didn't happen in a vacuum. So one of the real interesting things, I don't know if I have an article on it pulled up, but the decision to rescind, or the vote that rescinded this, happened just 4 days after previous mayor Vi Lyles announced that she was stepping down. And I read somewhere, one columnist called that it was like this whole thing was more of a political spasm. Who knows? There was a lot going on at the time, but what we do know for certain is that Vilisle stepped down immediately. Just a couple days later, the city council flipped and said absolutely not. And then a few days after that, then the CRTPO pulled all of their support, and then the entire thing just kind of imploded. Local people got a voice, which is good to see. Whether you agree with it or not, it is good to see that the local voice is still working. The CRTPO gave NCDOT, Department of Transportation, approval to move forward with the multi-billion-dollar project using a private developer, as was done in the north. But that was before detailed maps came out showing that homes were displaced, parks intruded upon by the roadway, fueling opposition, and also, again, it doesn't say it here, but, or maybe it does, a lot of people really hate the tolls north of the city. Granted, a lot of people don't fully understand all the issues with funding that made that possible in the first place, but it is true that a private company made the investment for all of I-77 North, or a large chunk of it, and now they're getting all of the toll revenue for 50 years, I think. And so, oh, this is interesting. So the CRTPO's attorney said it's too late for the board to reverse its vote to support the project. The most important step the agency can take now is to openly evaluate alternatives and remain genuinely open to a different outcome if the evidence supports it. Anyways, so again, this was back in May, and so it was not too late to do it, but it was too late to do it without potentially incurring costs, which is what we'll get to in a second. But I do think it's important to fully understand why there was so much very potent opposition to this. And so I'm going to share also this right here. That it goes into more detail on specifically what the project entailed, and also some of the reasons why people were really, really pissed about it. So I-77 casts long shadow. West Charlotte neighborhood leaders say that they're just getting started in the battle with NCDOT over plans for interstate expansion. This was in March. Sean Langley's house on Oak Lawn Avenue sits a few football fields away from Interstate 77, with uptown skyscrapers looming on the near horizon. On a recent late winter afternoon, Langley took a visitor on the short walk from his front door to the interstate and pointed out a couple of neighboring homes that would have been raised if a proposed expansion of toll lanes through uptown was done by widening the existing highway. And I will also say, my family has been through eminent domain before. It ain't fun. However, it's not terrible. At least our experience, my parents' home, so currently there's a stretch of highway that would be very equivalent to this, but in Indianapolis. And there is an exit if you go to Shadeland, the Shadeland Avenue exit on the east side of 465, which is the loop around Indianapolis. When you take that exit going northbound, you are driving through what used to be our bathroom, because they bought it to put in that entire exit expansion. Anyways, we got paid a fair price for it. It let my parents be able to buy a much nicer home out in the suburbs as a result, because they probably got more for that home, especially at the time, than they would have if they had tried to sell it on the open market because of how the appraisal process worked. But I know not everybody has the same experience with that. That is, however, my personal experience with it. I was very young at the time, but I have very vivid memories of watching the big excavator just demolish the house. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I feel like a normal 3-year-old would have been terrified. I was fascinated. I was like, I want to do that. Anyways, and now I help build and sell houses, so full circle, I guess. Anyways, he glanced toward private contractors surveying nearby properties on behalf of NCDOT. Langley needed little prompting to summarize why the $3.2 billion expansion will mean for his family and his neighbors. It affects their property value. Let's see. A lot of us are using this as a form of generational wealth. It affects our quality of life. Things like tailpipe emissions, even with an elevated sound barrier, those emissions will just come back over our community. I would be interested in seeing environmental impact studies to see if that's actually true. I know people qualitatively will feel that way. I don't know if that's actually measurably true, though. I am an engineer, so I think about these things. That's seniors, that's kids, and then it's just a physical and a psychological barrier that kind of says we're expendable in some ways. It further redefines that Charlotte is somewhat of a segregated city. Interesting take. McCrory Heights is a place that understands the pain of segregation and racial disparity. It is true. Historically, Charlotte has some insane, because we are right on the border of like the true South. So, especially today, Charlotte is more southern than the true South. But there's a lot of crazy history here, especially when you like the city back in the 60s and 70s. There's a lot of messed up stuff that happened, and also a lot of stuff that was quietly swept under the rug, which is very sad. And there still is an impact from that today. But there's also a lot of good stuff that's happened here too. Anyways, so what else did I want to cover on this? A coalition of 24 neighborhood and community groups joined by the Black Political Caucus lined up to fight what many saw as a repeat of the displacement that the original interstate project caused 60 years ago. Like I said, this runs very deeply. Nonprofits, mostly neighborhood and community associations, to reverse this decision. And then I got another specific one, because one of the big things people talked about too was Fraser Park. So, and it's not just Fraser, it's Fraser, Wilmore, I think it's 11 parks. Let me see. Charlotte would lose significant parkland if the I-77 toll lane project moved forward as proposed. The implications go beyond just eminent domain of private land. So this is also interesting. Charlotte already seriously lacks green space and ranks 90th in park access. I really want to challenge that a little bit, because we have, like, anybody that's coming here from DFW or New York or Florida, they love how many parks we've got. We've got a ton of parks. Many of them are small, but there's so many of them, and they've done a good job of saving a lot of the tree canopy here too. So at least 11 parks would take a hit, with Wilmore Park being erased entirely and Fraser Park losing courts and a dog park to lanes towering 40 to 60 feet overhead, which would just be absolutely no fun if, again, if you're trying to enjoy what green space would be left, there'd just be nothing next to you. Anywho, it'd just be a big wall next to you. Four creeks, Irwin, Kings Branch, Sugar Creek, and a McCullough Branch tributary also would face degradation, and one county commissioner's summary of the mitigation language is that we're going to screw it all up, but we're going to say that we're mitigating it. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to call out on this. Several Mecklenburg County commissioners said they were never warned about the threats to the parks over the years that the lanes were planned and voted on. Environmental committee members said that the only people who benefit from the tolls are car drivers who can afford to pay. The commissioners are worried about the children, elderly, and other neighbors who live and play and breathe around the highway. CRTPO attorney also saying, too late for the board to reverse a vote to support the project. In response to the mounting opposition, NCDOT delayed its next step, issuing a request for proposals until June to make more time to listen to concerns and minimize project impacts. Oh, and here, it was Committee Chair Elaine Powell said, "I'm really sick of the word minimize and mitigate. It's really like we're going to screw it all up, but then say we're mitigating it or minimizing it." Again, local politics, so take everything with a grain of salt. But that was the response to all this. So if the community said no, why won't the project just die? And who really holds the power? At least on paper, a no from Charlotte wouldn't necessarily be the end, because the state builds the highways, there's the regional federally designated planning organization. And so even if the suburbs really wanted it, technically it could still end up going through. But there's, in this whole conflict between the inner city and the surrounding suburbs, there's a lot of people out in the burbs that really want this, because there are some really legitimate problems with the traffic as it currently sits. Again, going back to the traffic map, look at that. It's all yellow and some red. It's noon. Red up here, yellow through here. There's not really any reason for the traffic to be like this at 12:07 p.m. Oh wait, I'm not screen sharing, my bad. Yellow, red, like there's no reason for that at 12:07 p.m. However, that said, again, the suburbs also weighed in. If I can find my tab, I got too many tabs open. Lake Norman area mayor calls votes to kill I-77 south toll lanes short-sighted. This is from a month ago. If Charlotte doesn't want to do it, we do. Mooresville Mayor Chris Carney said of some of the $600 million in road money that Charlotte gave up when it voted it down. We'll get into exactly how here in a second. I think this might dip into it. Mooresville could end up paying for some of the cost of this if it doesn't happen, which I think may be part of the motivation here. So Chris Carney said his town needs 35 or 40 million from the state for a long sought 70 million to 80 million I-77 exit 38 interchange. And the mayor said in an exclusive interview on Friday that the exit is crucial in part to moving big rigs through the region from town industrial parks. When we talk about, which there is a lot of industrial up in Iredell County. When we talk about exit 38, we're talking about the biggest names in the country on that corridor, because we got a lot of heavy manufacturing and a lot of employment that affects, because you hear about way up in Mooresville, like again, just put it on a map. We're talking about down here, but then, I mean, there's projects all over, but Mooresville is way up here. And so like everybody in the region is very invested in this because it has far-reaching implications. Anyways, not the story I wanted. This is an interesting development though. I'll make a video on it sometime. Penske, JR Motorsports, Niagara Bottling, and we have a ton of others coming, Carney said. That was a real setback. He called the move short-sighted, said he was disappointed. Recapping that the city council voted down. I-77 has the state's worst congestion with over 160,000 cars a day, according to NCDOT. With or without the toll lanes, I-77 will see a 25% increase in traffic by 2050, according to the department. He argued that the city-dominated planning board bulldozed a vote the suburbs weren't ready to take, exposing a deep city versus region fault line. And then again, going back to NCDOT, let me see if I think I have a video here for this. Let me just close out of a bunch of this.
Continuing the work despite community and political pushback. One more vote is needed to pull the plug on the I-77 project that's meant to relieve congestion.
WBTV's Dedrick Russell spent the day getting answers from transportation leaders about what's next, and he's joining us now live in the studio. So, Dedrick, what can you tell us tonight?
Well, John, if this project goes away, it could be decades before state funding for this I-77 widening project comes up again. More than 160,000 cars pass this part of I-77 South daily. That number is expected to grow to more than 200,000 cars by 2050. This area has the highest interstate congestion in North Carolina, and about 5 fatalities happen each year. The plan is to widen this 11-mile stretch to 10 lanes with a toll lane. Brett Knipe is with NCDOT.
This project's been around in concept for really going on 20 years.
This interstate has been a problem for years. Funding for the project was identified back in 2024. That funding of $600 million will go away if it is decided to stop the project.
Unfortunately, we would not be able to deliver.
Until that happens, NCDOT is still putting in the work. It has heard from the community about reconnecting communities impacted by the widening. Travis Falls is one of the developers.
What opportunities are there to connect either communities, parks, lands, different type of trail systems?
These renderings show what communities near I-77 could look like, but these plans are now in jeopardy.
We are planning to move forward. Right now, we have direction to move forward. We've been following a multi-years long process, following the requirements of legislation and policy. So we're continuing on that effort. We're hopeful that we're able to continue that because we want to deliver on our commitment to help reconnect the communities.
Sustained Charlotte, who is against the current I-77 plan, states this moment calls for a credible, independent alternatives analysis before the project moves forward. NCDOT says if the project is stopped, Charlotte would have to start the process all over again, and millions of dollars would disappear.
Certainly, there are limitations on the funding.
Which also, to put this in perspective, separate issue, but also definitely worth mentioning. I think they've sunk $60 million into all the design and redesign and surveys and studies and everything else. So, like, there's been a pretty good chunk of change that's already been invested in this, but I'll let the video play.
Funding availability in the state of North Carolina, I don't think that's a big secret. Certainly, we've got a lot of demand in this state.
Now, keep in mind, one more vote is needed to make this project go away for good. Now, the state has already spent about $60 million for this project. The question remains tonight, if the project goes away, will the state get some of its money back? Now, I asked state leaders were there lessons learned from this process. They told me as early and as often they need to make sure neighbors have the correct information. John, Siobhan, back to you.
All right, thanks, Dedrick.
Yeah. So that was again as of May. There's legitimate traffic and safety concerns. There has been a slight uptick in traffic fatalities in Charlotte over this past year. Many of those are actually not related to the highway, but everything has come under more scrutiny, everything related to this, the Department of Transportation has come under more scrutiny as a result because, we want to live and drive somewhere safe, right? I think that's fair to ask. We are planning to move forward, as state engineers said. The department has already sunk $60 million into procurement and design. The state's message is basically that a city council vote doesn't automatically stop a state highway. Now, Raleigh wants its money back, Raleigh being the state capital, of North Carolina. And so Will saying no actually ended up costing Charlotte a chunk of change, because the state has begun to fight back with a financial weapon and a ticking time clock. And this was coming in just very recently. Let me add the tab. Charlotte likely faces October cutoff to save $600 million in state funding for I-77, because at least as of right now, the $600 million is committed. So figuring out what to do with I-77 without losing the cash we got so far is looking like a 90-day sprint for all involved. Depending on whether Josh Stein signs the budget or not, which he did sign the budget, meaning that the likely drop-dead date for preserving the funding will be early October. Both chambers of the state legislature are expected to approve the budget by the end of the week. The budget under consideration includes a new provision, cancellation of STIP projects, referring to the State Transportation Improvement Plan, putting Charlotte very clearly in the crosshairs, saying that that would need to be paid back. The plan called for adding 2 toll lanes each north and south, or each way north and south along the 11-mile corridor running from the state line to Uptown. State budget provision requires any local government that voted in favor of canceling, basically if a local government votes to cancel a state-approved project, must reimburse NCDOT for the preliminary costs incurred in connection with the statewide project prior to approval, which means that they would be clawing back about $60 million, which again is not, actually I'm curious, what is the Charlotte City budget total amount? Charlotte City Council has a budget of $4.5 billion for fiscal year 2027. So, you know, is some, we'll call it maybe 40 of the 60 that we'd be responsible for. It's relatively a drop in the bucket. That's about 1% of the budget. So it's not a huge amount, but that still is substantial, and it still is very clearly the struggle between state legislators, local legislators, and the people that actually live here and call this place home. In the largest by GDP too, region in the entire state, no less. So the state budget, adding the provision, was very squarely aimed at Charlotte, and that puts a likely drop-dead date around early October for Charlotte to just come up with some kind of an answer. And where was it? How much would I have to repay? If the provision in the budget passes and is enforced, to be fair, and is enforced, that could mean Charlotte's on the hook to repay as much as $25 million, based on the requirement that any local government would be responsible for the cost in proportion to the weighted voting percentage of the local government. So 25 mil isn't as bad as I thought. Interesting. At the same time, other moves and maneuvers are underway, including lobbying by the CRBA, the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, and other business leaders to convince the City Council to consider reversing its stance on the I-77 South project. Because Charlotte's vote accounts for 42% of the total, almost anything supported by Charlotte passes. On June 30th, Sustain Charlotte nonprofit dedicated to smart growth and mobility pushed a report billed as a comprehensive multimodal strategy. The report makes a series of recommendations, all much lower cost than the tolling options, aimed at improving safety and traffic flow. And these include modernizing ramps and interchanges, variable speed limits and other real-time adjustments to traffic conditions, using existing road shoulders for express bus service, evaluating highway caps, tunnels, and other steps to reconnect with adjacent neighborhoods and roads, and considering more high-capacity transit connections. And I will say, from one of the videos, if you watched the video I made on why Charlotte's traffic is getting absolutely bonkers, induced demand. What is induced demand traffic? This is a really interesting, I'll just briefly touch on this. So basically it occurs when expanding or adding new roadways generates more traffic because it becomes easier to travel that way. And so as a result, more people travel along that route. And so one of the really interesting things in the recommendation by this report would be adding more bus service, which is also already funded, and could help to reduce a lot of the strain that we currently have on the roadways, because for a lot of the people commuting, it could be a lot more efficient. And we do have a lot of roadways already for trade and for people that are not commuting. And so like we already have a lot of stuff. We do need to use it a lot more efficiently, and we also do need to do something about the traffic. I don't think nobody's arguing with that, but what we do is very important. One county leader is already calling the retroactive clawback unconstitutional. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to weigh in on that. Let's see. So also, from a couple weeks ago, NC bill revives Charlotte toll lane fight. Senator Vicky Sawyer's legislation's the mechanism, let's see, for Charlotte and the other governments to reimburse the roughly 25 million that's out of the 60 million that's already spent, and freeze the project on the books until 2027 to leave the door open for a reversal. It even blocks Mecklenburg County from using its new transportation sales tax to pay the bill. So really putting the screws to Charlotte. Then also here, one other one. Pressure is already splitting the coalition. 8 jurisdictions voted the project down, but Monroe has since reversed course rather than risk future road funding, and its mayor expects smaller towns to follow. Mecklenburg County for now says it will hold the line and eat the cost on principle. This is the will they blink test. So basically everybody's in a giant game of chicken right now, and Charlotte is willing to write a check if necessary to maintain its sovereignty, for lack of a better word. Actually, very funny story. I had a gentleman, wait, let me see if I can find this. It cracked me up. Where was it? Oh, I can't find it. Somebody commented on one of the videos saying that Charlotte's roadmap looks very much like British cities layouts. And he said, this coming from a British man. And I responded to the comment and said something along the lines of, well, technically speaking, originally Charlotte was a British city. On an unrelated note, happy 4th of July. Hey, we're known as the hornet's nest for a reason. Actually, if you don't know, this is a fun story. Why is Charlotte known as the hornet's nest? Going back to 1780, during the Revolutionary War, when British General Cornwallis occupied the city, facing fierce, relentless attacks from local patriots, he famously called the area a hornet's nest of rebellion because the locals' resistance was as stinging and troublesome as a disturbed nest of hornets. And I will say, to this day, Charlotte has a very passionate group of people, and it's part of the culture here too. I have even noticed myself, the longer I've lived here, the more impassioned I have become about Charlotte and about living in Charlotte and making Charlotte home. And it's home, damn it. It is a great place to call home. And both historically and today, people are very passionate about this place and how we govern ourselves. even on highway projects. So I'm going to show you a little bit of the actual, let's see. I already kind of talked about this. So opponents aren't just saying no, they're pitching a different vision of having express buses on the shoulders, shifting through traffic to I-485, highway caps and tunnels to reconnect neighborhoods, and heavier investment in transit and public transit, mass transit. And Sustain Charlotte later published the multimodal report along these lines. The equity argument sharpens. It was really one of the sharpest points, or the most one of the most impassioned arguments, that even though it is maybe less impactful directly to the state vote, it is something that taking dozens of homes through eminent domain, especially in neighborhoods that have already been very negatively impacted by previous highway projects, it's a really sore spot, and I can't blame anybody that feels that way either. Again, I'm just reporting out on what we're seeing and an overview of this, but I get it. It makes sense. So to give you an idea of the exact, this is the NCDOT, Department of Transportation, project page that outlines, so this is the stretch that they're talking about in this study. And so the CRTPO rescinded support of the public-private partnership, or P3 funding mechanism to deliver the project. This was the only financially viable delivery method for the project, which the CRTPO first submitted to the state in 2014. The project remained unfunded until 2024, when CRTPO voted to advance it using a P3 delivery process. Once the STIP is amended, 600 million, damn, I wish we had 600 billion, previously committed to the project will be made available for other projects across the state competing for funding, and the $100 million bonus allocation awarded for the use of the toll lanes will be redistributed to other projects across the state. Let's see if this video is any interesting at all.
Interstate 77 is one of the state's busiest corridors. Since the last major improvements on I-77 in the 1990s, rapid growth in the Charlotte region has led to increased congestion, reduced safety, and unpredictable travel times. As the region's primary north-south route, it is vital for commerce and links key roadways and other modes of transportation. The southern section of I-77 carries approximately 160,000 vehicles per day. Express lanes are coming to the I-77 South Corridor because they provide a long-term solution for managing congestion and travel time reliability. Express lanes are toll lanes built within an existing highway. Drivers can choose to pay the toll and use the express lanes, or continue in the existing non-tolled lanes. The I-77 South Express Lanes project originated from a local study led by the Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization and the North Carolina Department of Transportation, consistent with North Carolina's policy that all toll projects begin locally. CRTPO requested that NCDOT move forward with the project. The project has an estimated cost of $3.2 billion. It will be fine.
I will also add, this video is by NCDOT Communications, and actually, let's see, when was it published?
Be financed through.
This was published 7 months ago to November. So, yeah, also take this with a grain of salt too.
A public-private partnership, or P3, which provides private funding and enables improvements to be delivered more quickly. The I-77 South Express Lanes project extends 11 miles from the South Carolina state line to the I-277 Brookshire Freeway interchange, where it ultimately connects with the existing express lanes on I-77 North. The project corridor includes 13 interchanges and several bridges, most of which are anticipated to be improved as part of this project. There would also be numerous opportunities to access the express lanes, including 3 proposed locations that directly connect the I-77 South Express Lanes with another roadway. As part of this project, bicycle and pedestrian facilities would be enhanced where interchanges are upgraded. In uptown Charlotte, north of the I-277 Belk Freeway, an elevated express lanes option is under consideration. These lanes would pass over Moorhead, 4th, Trade, and 5th Streets, and continue over the I-277 Brookshire Freeway interchange, ultimately connecting to the existing I-77 express lanes north of Uptown Charlotte. As the Charlotte region grows, congestion along this corridor will continue to increase, leading to more unpredictable travel conditions and safety concerns. The I-77 South Express Lanes project improves mobility and supports planned growth by providing an option for reliable travel times and connecting to the regional express lanes network. Visit the I-77 South Express Lanes website for more details and to stay informed as the project progresses.
There's some real inspirational music on that. Yeah, so the state's, according to the state's page, because the travel times on the stretch swing from 10 minutes up to nearly an hour on, let's go back to the map. That was a great map. So because the travel time can swing from as little as 10 minutes, it's not really 10 minutes, but it is, probably 12 to 15 minutes, up to nearly an hour, calls the public-private toll model the only financially viable way to do it. Page also notes that the project's been pulled from the 2026 to 2035 state plan as and effectively unfunded. The corridor is 160,000 cars a day. It has an accident rate that is 2.8x of comparable roads, so it's relatively unsafe. And 157 people moving into the region per day will increase the demand towards 200,000 cars a day or more, whether or not new toll lanes are added. So what is that? That's a 20% increase. By when? I'm not sure when that would be. Let's see if we can find it. Does it mention the 200,000 on here? Let's see. 200,000. When would Charlotte I-77 get up to 200,000 cars a day? Let's see. By 2050. To be fair, it's already wild, so I can only imagine what 200,000 cars a day would do. So anyways, actually one of the articles that prompted this will be probably my last one here before we give you the takeaways, the most important points from this. Since Vi Lyle stepped down, Charlotte has a new mayor, and this is an opinion piece, so again, take it with a grain of salt, but Rob Harrington is who the city council chose as an interim member or interim mayor for the city. And again, according to the opinion piece, the city has backed itself into a corner on one of the region's most important transportation projects. Harrington now has a chance and an obligation, according to Mr. Andrew Dunn, to help it find a way out. And doing so will take more than steadiness. It's going to take some nerve. The controversy that Harrington inherits, and that is a key point, homie got thrust into this. And I will say, on a very different scale, mind you, right? When I was in college, I was in a fraternity. And my fraternity, I was on the executive council for 2 years. And there was a couple of real spicy discussions within the house about the future of the house and how we were going to, just like the vision for what we wanted to become. I had a great fraternity, mind you. We were absolutely zero tolerance on hazing. It was a phenomenal experience. All great guys. And everybody, because it was a relatively new fraternity, was very invested in trying to make it become something. So there was, similar to this, some very impassioned discussion about things. There was a couple of very spicy discussions that I ended up inheriting when I was vice president that, because at least how we functioned, vice president was primarily internally focused for the House, and the president was primarily like networking with the interfraternal council. So not that you care, but to set the stage. Very similar. And that is not a fun job. I cannot emphasize enough, that is not a fun job. anybody that is willing to take that on is like they know what they're getting themselves into, and they still do it anyways. After years of tacit backing for the project, the city council suddenly voted in May to rescind support in a move that felt less like a settled transportation decision than a political spasm. It came 4 days after Lyles announced she had stepped down, accelerating the scramble over Charlotte's post-Lyles political future. This is the kind of moment when Charlotte needed a steady hand at the helm. It did not have one. Again, an opinion piece. Some people will disagree with that. Some people will agree with that. For most of her tenure, Lyles likely would have supplied that restraint. On I-77, she should have vetoed the council's vote to slow the city down and require a better answer than simply walking away. The vote stood. CRTPO soon followed, effectively killing the project. That number, it's 1% of the city budget again. It's a lot of money though. 60 milli is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. North Carolina needs a better way to build urban highway projects without spending years and tens of millions of dollars just to arrive at designs and process, but that's a separate problem. I do agree with that. I will say, however, as an engineer, there's only so many ways you can get certain answers, and some of those, if you ask expensive questions, you get expensive answers. I'm just going to say it. And right now we got an expensive problem. Inherently, objectively. Like 60 million, let me put it this way. If you're getting something, actually this is a very interesting idea. If you are, let's say you're doing a $100,000 project for a house. You might get a free quote, you might get a quote for $500 to $1,000 depending on the contractor. That's like 1%. If we're looking at a project that was going to be, what, 3.6 billion, so we'll say 60 million divided by 3,600 million, or 3.6 billion, that would be 1.6% of the total project budget, which might be a little bit inflated, but let's say that 1% rule holds. That would still be 36 million. Again, if you ask expensive questions, you get expensive answers. There are plenty of good reasons to oppose the project, or at least to be skeptical of it. Nobody likes tolls, and nearby neighborhoods have legitimate concerns about what the final design will mean for them. And anyone who drives I-77 also knows that it desperately needs work. It is dangerous, slow, and only getting worse. And growth is not waiting for Charlotte politics to sort itself out. The reality is that the project is the only serious option on the table. As of right now, an NCDOT has signaled a willingness to work with the community on a version people can stomach, but that cannot happen if Charlotte kills the project altogether. To be fair though, if the project doesn't get killed, it's probably going to just steamroll through as is. Because everybody will be like, well, we can't spend another $30 million to completely overhaul the project. I think city council members know they've created a problem they cannot easily clean up on their own. The members who voted to rescind support will not want to reverse themselves. Activists who oppose the project will see reconsideration as betrayal. He's not running for mayor in 2027 or anything else for that matter. He does not have to protect a campaign, build a future coalition out of every vote, or treat this issue as a test of his political brand. I-77 decision was made in haste. I will say it kind of felt that way because it was like planning, and it's like, let's jam it through. Because there was not as much disclosure on this as there really should have been, or as many community studies. He should push the city to reopen the process, restore its seat at the table, and fight for a better version of the project instead of pretending the whole thing can disappear. He was chosen because Charlotte needs steadiness, and I-77 is where he can show he has nerve too. It's an interesting opinion piece. Let's see what the comments say. Or Mineral Springs. Good luck to the new mayor when he attempts to help solve the I-77 problem, which is unsolvable. As long as the Charlotte area continues to grow in human population, adding roads or lanes no matter what does nothing to solve the congestion and growing population, only encourages and increases more population growth. There's a whole lot of people that are just like anti-growth here, but that's not going to happen. And realistically, public transit is a pretty good solution for commute traffic. It really is. And we have a lot of light rail coming in. So I mean, I think some things are really moving in the right direction. It's just going to take time. So you want to build a wall. What encourages population growth is a thriving economy where there are jobs. People moved based on congestion first and jobs second. Everybody would live in Montana. That's also a very charged comment, but. Or mineral springs. That's funny. That makes more sense on that thread. So yeah, a few of the opinion questions I wanted to talk through. Is this a courageous stand or a costly mistake? The neighborhoods that have been most vocal in slowing down the project have legitimate concerns. It is going to have a large negative impact, and so we got to do something to figure that side out. But also, the 25 milli is also going to be expensive if we got to pay it back. Who should actually have a decision? Because it is technically true that the federally mandated board, the CRTPO, Charlotte Regional Transportation, what was it? Transportation Authority or something? What does it stand for again? I keep forgetting. What does the CRTPO stand for? Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization. Charlotte controls 42% of the vote and overrode the suburbs and the state as a result. And so, you know, true democracy is messy. And if you got to get everybody to agree on something, that is... It's tough to get people to agree on stuff, man. It's tough. It is a tough job, and it takes time and it takes a lot of work to get, especially for something that has this many stakeholders. That doesn't just immediately come together. What does it say about Charlotte, the Charlotte that you live in or are moving to? I will say that this is it is pretty telling. The city is very impassioned about where we live. There's an ongoing struggle between people that are either from here generationally, like I have one friend that he's like 5th or 6th generation here in Charlotte, and they feel very strongly about all things Charlotte because it's theirs. They've owned land here for generations and generations, and they have a very valid voice. There's also a lot of people that have moved here for work and for life, and this is their home, at least for now, so they also have a very valid voice. And so to get everybody to agree is not going to be a comfortable process. It is going to take time. And traffic is going to continue to get worse until something happens that makes it easier to commute. And so Charlotte didn't just reject a highway. It also... this is revealing for what our values are, how we work together or sometimes don't to try to get, to figure out how to continue to grow. And we're going to find out how we actually move forward from this. If you are concerned about commutes and what that, especially with traffic continuing to get worse, what that's going to mean for where you might want to call home, you can take our Charlotte Areas quiz, answer a few quick questions, including commute. Hello, I spent so much time on this just for you. Scan the code or click the link below and you can find a short list of a few areas that might be a good fit for what you're looking for, and on everything including accessibility to different things like the airport, uptown, otherwise, and other lifestyle factors too. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been interesting. If you're moving to Charlotte anytime soon, take the quiz, or you can also call, text, or WhatsApp me anytime. That is my real number, goes to my real phone. And I believe this here goes to book a call with me, and we can chat about your move as well. Always happy to help. My name's Lucas Roller, your trusted resource for all things real estate and all things Charlotte here in the beautiful Queen City. And as always, until next time, hope to help you make Charlotte home. And I got more live streams coming up soon. If you got ideas or feedback of any kind, drop it down in the comments below. Go check out my other videos, my other live streams. I try to go live several times a week with stories just like this one. And I try to respond to all the comments. Sometimes it takes me a few hours or a couple days, depending on how busy I am, helping people make Charlotte home. But I love seeing all the comments. I do respond, and I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And again, until next time, as always, hope to help you make Charlotte home.